Hello and welcome to another lesson of VBA programming. In our previous lessons, we started with how to create our first project in MS Excel VBA programming, which is the bulk email sender applications, an application that allows you to send thousands of emails with just a click of a mouse, which we created using MS Excel VBA programming. In this lesson, we're going to continue or finish up with the creation of this amazing application. Okay, as usual, it's going to be very simple, straightforward, and fun. Okay, so before we delve right into the lessons, if you haven't subscribed to our channel, please subscribe, press the bell icon so that you can receive notifications anytime we upload new tutorials. Okay, if you also want to access our previous tutorials, we have the links in the videos descriptions below. You can just check out the links and watch our previous tutorials so that you can understand how things work. Okay, now let's quickly delve right into today's lessons. Thank you. Hello and welcome to another lesson of VBA training, and in this lesson we're going to continue with the second phase of our project, that is the bulk email application project. In the previous lesson we are done with the front end of it, that is where we designed the front end. So here we're going to deal with the coding aspect of it. So let's dive right into that. We open our folder, we locate the file, let's open it. Good. So we are done with all this. So quickly, the next time, all we're going to do right now is this, is just to begin with the coding aspect. So to do that, Alt F11 to open the code editor. You're going to insert a module. Okay, so you choose module. So you just have to name it. So you can see create and send. Okay, create and send. Perfect is okay. Or you can add email. Create and send email. Good. So that is that. Just press enter, and that is the name of our module. So here we're going to create a sub procedure. So you can say that is sub. We just give it a name like create and send. Okay, then we get the end sub. So here now, first of all, we're going to dimension some few variables. Okay, the variables we're going to dimension include the Outlook application, because with the email we shall be sending, we are going to be using the Outlook application for that. So we're going to dimension that as an object. Also dimension Outlook email, okay, or Outlook mail as also an object. And we're also going to dimension the last row. Let's look at that, the last row, because we're going to check through this list of students here and decide as to whether to send all of them the message or some people. So with that, we need to know the last row with data and then take that into consideration before sending our email. So we're going to dimension the last row to as long. Then from there, we're going to dimension the student row. Let me just look at that. This is the student row we have here. The value here, we're going to dimension that equally as also what? Long. Then from there, we're going to dimension the variable row. And these are the variable rows that we have here. Okay. We're going to dimension those ones too as also what? Long. Then after that, our email object, the email we shall be creating, we're going to dimension that one too as also what? A string. Okay. And also the subject. Okay, this is the subject of the email. That one too, we're going to dimension that one too as what? String. And then the message itself also what? A string. And now with the file we may be attaching, with that one too, we're going to dimension that one too as also what? The string. So these are the variables we shall be dimensioning or shall be declaring. So now we can go ahead and declare them now. Good. So now you know the variables we are dimensioning. So once I start, I don't have to go back there again. So we start with this one. We say what dimension, that is the Outlook application. So we say Outlook app as objects, and can bring comma, then Outlook mail as also what object. Okay, then from there we will also dimension the last row. Okay, so we say what dim last row as long. Okay, then the student row, which I showed you earlier, as also what long. Okay, and then the variable row var row as also what long. Perfect. Now we're going to dimension the email. Okay, so we say what dim email as what string. Okay, the subject as what also what string. Okay, and then a message as also string, and then we have the file name sorry, as also what string. Perfect. So now we are done dimensioning our variables now. So now we're going to start working around the sheet 2. In order for us not to keep typing sheet 2, we're going to use the width. So we say what width sheet, sorry, with sheet 2. And you know what is next? We say what end width with sheet 2 end width. Now what we want to do now? Now we need to set the value for our last row. Okay, so we say last row is equal to, the last row we are talking about, where the students list is, it's on sheet 1, this one here. We are talking of the last row with data. Good. We say last row equal to sheet 1 dot range into brackets. We have the first column, that is the column A. Then we can just give some random numbers depending upon the size of your database. Okay, into brackets dot end. Let me just dot end into brackets Excel app bracket close dot row. Sorry, this gives us the last row of the table, or the last row with data. Okay, now what we are going to do is this: we are going to look through the student row. Okay, from the first row to the last row, and check and decide on what to do before we can then send our what, or create our email. Okay, so we're going to use the for loop to do that. We're going to use the for loop to look through our students here and check on some conditions on our table. If all those conditions are met, that is when we can go ahead and create our email. Okay, let's do that. So we're going to use the for loop. Okay, so we say what for students row equal to the first row, which is 5, to the last row, sorry, the last row. Then we say what next student row. Don't forget, once we use the for, we come to next for. Okay, what we are saying is that for the student row, which is equal to 5, let's confirm that the first row is equal to 5, to the last row, which is the last row with the data here, we want to check on something. what we want to check, we're going to use if statement to check on certain things. So let's do that. So what we're going to check and make sure is this. We would have to check and make sure that, this particular range, if we are sending the email for all these people here, we need to make sure that all this range, as I already explained in the demo video of this particular project which I've already created, we would have to make sure that this range, all this range is completely empty. There is nothing there. And if it is empty, that is when we can go ahead and create the email. And once the email is created, then this particular column should be filled with what? Date and time at which the email is created. So with this project, what I want you to know is this. Once you run the project and you realize there is a date, time, and everything here, it means the email has been created and sent. But as long as this place remains empty, it means you can still create any email and then send. So that is that. So now we need to check and make sure that this range is empty before we can create our email and either display it before sending it or send it without even displaying it. So whichever, we'll see all this. Okay, let's do that. So we would want to use if statement. So we say if sheet 1, okay, we're talking of the sheet with the table, dot range, which of the range, E, one I've already showed you where we have, I will go there again, the dot range E, and students row, the range E and student row into bracket dot value equal to empty, then we have if. Okay, what we are saying is this. If sheet 1 dot range E, where is sheet 1? This is our sheet 1 dot range, this particular E, the column E here we are talking about. Okay, if this particular range is equal to empty, we would want to then do something. We would want to do what? Create our email. And once the email is created, that is when we'll decide as to whether to display it before sending or send without displaying. Let's check on that. So if sheet 1 dot range E and student row, okay, but value is equal to empty, and would want to do something. What do we want to do? We would want to check on the student row, okay, and create the value and then generate the value for the first student, create the person's email, and then either display it or send it. Check for the person, display that and send it. Check for the third person and then do that. Let's see how that is going to be achieved. Okay, so we say what? Dot range into bracket. Let's check where the student row is. Okay, let's go there. Sorry, we have that here. This particular range is what we are talking about. The range here is what? B3. We want to assign a value to it. Okay, we want to assign a value to. So for each student email to be generated, the person's what? Row number. If the first person is going to be generated, then the row number here, which is 5, is going to be what? Generated here. Okay, before that person's email will be created. But all is going to be done within just a twinkle of an eye, within just with a click of a mouse. Then all that will happen. Okay, so it looks like there is nothing happening, but in fact there is a lot happening, because that is how macros are run. They run very faster. That is what is actually happening behind the scene. If it's creating for that the first person, it means the first person's row number, which is 5, should be here. If it is for the second person, the 6 should be there in that order. So that is what we are doing in our macros now. So is it what? Dot range, where we have the student row, is what? B3. Don't forget of that. Okay, dot range B3. Just close this. Dot value should be equal to what? The student row. Okay, basically that is that. Now what we need to do is this. After that we have other things to also check, but with those ones we can't just write every macro on that. Since there is a very simple and straightforward way of doing that, we need to make sure that where the last name is supposed to be, it is there. where the first name is supposed to be within the email is there. Where the email address is supposed to be, it should be there. And then this decision here as to whether to email and send, email and print, or only email or only print, all these ones we need to write macros for them. But there is a very simple way of doing that. Okay, since we already declared variables for all these things, we're just going to use the .calculate function, and this particular function will just run through all these things and make sure that everything is in order, and then go ahead and create the email. So let's just call on that, and then we'll be good to go. We don't have to write every single line for that, so we just say what .calculate. Perfect. So this will just do the force calculation and make sure that everything is ordered before the email is going to be what generated. So now that we are done with that, now let's look for the next line of action. Okay, now let's be putting comments so that they can be. So now we would want to what check would want to check for what the next thing is check for either to send the email, and then what, and then send, and you see send email, and then check as to whether the email address is there before we send it. Okay, before you can send an email, we would have to check the range where the email address is before we can send. So we check for what, send email, and then the presence of what, and let's say what, and whether there is an email address. Perfect. So that is that. So to do that, we're going to use if statement. So now we're going to check on certain things here like this, as to in this range, what are we doing? In this range, are we to send the email, or are we to print it, or are we to email and print? Which is which? So we are going to decide on all that. We're going to check that using the if statement, and also we're going to check and make sure that there is what, email address, before we can do what, send the email. Let's do that in our macros. So we're going to use if statement. Okay, so we say what, if. So there is a function called inString, which is going to check a string in a string, right? All those things we have, the print and send, email and print, and all that, they are all what, strings, right? So we're going to check that using the what, the inString function. So we say what, inString, okay, into bracket. Sorry, let me just define it well. We have inString like this. Good. Into brackets, sheet1 dot range of the range, into brackets d, the range d. We'll see what is happening in d, bracket close. Sorry, d, okay, d, and student row dot value, the value there, comma, is what, email. Okay, the string there is email, then bracket close, is greater than 0, and sheet1 dot range into brackets, which of the range, C. Don't worry, we'll look at all that, C, and student row into bracket dot value is not, sorry, is not equal to, sorry, empty. Then we have end if here. Okay, so I already have the end if. Good, with that. It is if and if, so we need the end if here. Perfect. For that, good. Now what we are saying is this: if inside the string, or what are we checking? We are checking here. Let me just explain that before we come back here. Sorry. First of all, we are checking the strings here. Which of the string do we have in the column D here? So what we are saying is that before we can create an email, we need to make sure that in this column D, the string we have here is email. That is what we are saying here. We say what, if in string sheet1 dot range D and student row dot value, comma, is email. is greater than 0, meaning there is a value there, there is a string there, which is what? Email. And that is not all. The second condition is in sheet 1.range C and student row.value is not equal to empty. Where is the sheet 1.range C? That is the email column, this particular column. If it is not equal to empty, what it means is that there is an email address there. And if these two conditions are met, then we would want to do something. What we want to do, we would want to then go ahead, what? Take the email address, okay? Create the subject of the email, and then the message itself. So that is what we are going to do. And fortunately for us, we have already done that. Okay, the subject is here. Okay, the email address is already here. And now this is the email itself. So what we are going to do is to make reference of all these things in our macros. Let's do that. So we say what? Email. The email is equal to sheet 1 dot range, dot range, perfect, into brackets C and student row, okay, the range and student row, bracket close, dot value. Okay, that gives us what? The email. So let me just comment there, email address. So what we are saying is this email should be equal to, where are we taking the email? We are taking the email from sheet 1.range C. We are taking the email from this sheet 1.range C, the column C. We are taking the email for any of this particular person that we are sending. If it is all of them, if it is one person, we are taking the person's email, or all of them, we are taking the emails from this particular range. Okay, that is that. Now the next thing is the subject. Where are we taking the subject? So we say, well, we've already declared the variable called subject. Okay, so subject should be equal to what? Dot range into brackets, dot range into brackets. Let's check where our subject is. The subject is here. Okay, that is G4. This is where our subject is. So let's go back and refer to that. Dot range G4. Okay, dot value, dot value. Perfect. Now the next thing is what? The message itself. Now, so you say what? Message, that should be equal to dot range into bracket. Where is our message itself? The message is what? G5. We can just copy that from here and we come back here, then paste it, G5 dot value. Now all those things are now taken. Now the next thing we are going to do is this. We are going to use a function called replace, okay, to replace the variables names with the values themselves. Let's check on what I'm talking about. You know, we created variables here, and these are the values. So the last name, this is the value. First name, this is the value. Email address, this is the value. And you know, we have those variables names in our subject as well as our message body itself. So we can send the email with this hashtag first name, or with this hashtag first name here as well. So what we need to do is to make sure that we replace this hashtag first name to the person's name here, the one we are sending the email to, and this one we need to replace that. We're going to use the replace function to do that. But before we can do that, we're going to use the for loop to do that. Okay, we're going to use the for loop to loop through these various variables here and determine. If you see last name, replace it with this. If you see first name, replace it with this. If you see email address, replace it with this. So with that, we'll be good to go. Now let's do that. So we're going to use for loop, like I said. So we say for var. We've already declared that particular variable, which is where we have the variable. Var is equal to, I'll explain that, for to 6. Okay, then we say what? Next var row. Don't forget of that. Perfect. What we are saying is that for var row, where is the var row? Var row equal to 4 to 6. Let's check that. This is the var row we have here. 4. This is the row 4 to 6 to the last one here. This is the fourth one, the last one. Okay, that's what we are doing. So what are we going to do after looping? After looping, what are we going to do? After looping through that, we're going to, like I said, replace all those variables with their values. Okay, so to do that, we are going to start within the subject. So within the subject here, we're going to check and then replace the first name with its value itself based on what we have here. From there, we come to the message body itself and then replace this one to the same thing that we have here. Let's do that. So we say what? Subject is equal to what? Then we use the replace function. What are we replacing? Replace into bracket. Then within the subject, comma, dot, range into brackets. C, I'm coming. C and student row, bracket with dot value. Okay, dot value, comma. I will explain this. Then to replace to a dot range into brackets B and student row, B and student row, and variable row rather, and here too should be variable row. I'm coming, let me just get this here done well. C and var row, okay, and var row B and also what? Var row and bracket close dot value. Perfect. Let me check it well. Subject equal to replace. What are we replacing? We are replacing subject. Inside the subject dot range C. Okay. Dot range C and variable row bracket close dot value, comma, dot range into bracket B. Okay, and variable row also dot value. Okay, now we need to close this one as well. Perfect. That is that. So what we are doing is this. Within the subject, we are replacing whatever we have in C to whatever we have in B within the variable rows we have declared. I will show you that. I repeat, within the subject here, we already have this one variable, which is the first name. Good. We are replacing whatever we have in C. Where is the C? Within the var row. Okay, within the var rows. Where are the var rows? These are the var rows here. So, and this is the column C. Whatever we have in C, we want to replace whatever we have in B. That is what we are doing there. So, whatever we have in C, column C here. So, currently we have this. So, we are replacing it to the direct opposite of what is in B. So, that is that. So, we are replacing it to what? Whatever is in B, to range B in the same var row. So, that should be done within the subject. Now, what of the message? Let's do the same thing. So, we can just copy this. Control C to copy and do some editing, okay, and Control V to paste. So here should be what? Message is equal to replace, and here too should be what? Message. The same thing. The range C should be replaced whatever we have to whatever we have in B. So basically that is that. Then once that is done, then we have achieved that one as well. Okay. So basically that is that. Now the next thing we are going to look at is the file name. Okay, the next thing we're going to look is the file name. What is the file we are talking about? We are talking about the file you might be sending, the image or whatever file you intend to add to your message and send. So let's work on that. Okay, So with that, we're going to say we want to give or maybe assign or give a name to our file. Okay, so we say file name should be equal to this this work this work. So let me just try using this Control G. This workbook, okay, dot, depending upon where the file is coming from, okay, within the workbook, that is the path of it. Wherever the file is located within the workbook, we are just taking it from there. That is why we use the this workbook dot path, where the file, that particular file is located. So we are concatenating it to what? The extension. So we use this and then forward slash and this. Okay, so that is the path. And now we need to give a name to the file. Then we add the extension to it. Okay, so with that, I'll just name it logo. Okay, dot pdf. Okay, I'll just name it logo dot pdf. Okay, then I close this. So this gives us what? The name of the file. So the next thing we are going to look at this is maybe sometimes after the file is created, it will leave a copy. So the next time we are trying to create another one and send, we might get an error. So in that, we're going to write a very simple line of code to delete that. So that before we do that, we have to make sure that we skip that error. We override the error and go to the next line of action. So with that, we say what? On error, resume next. Okay, so once that is done, since the file is already created, now we need to make sure that we have the file in our email, but we don't leave a copy of that in the memory. Else, well, the next time we're going to create another one, we might get an error, like I stated before. So we're just going to use the kill function, kill into bracket, then the file name. Okay, so we are deleting the file just like that. So kill into bracket the file name. So this deletes the file. Let me just comment there. Let's see. Perfect. That is that. Now, once the file is deleted, maybe there could be another error. So to make sure that we override that one, we can equally say on error. We can equal, instead of resume next, we can also use go to. So sometimes you see that one as well. It's just the same thing. Go to what? 0. We just go to 0. We just want to override the error. That is all. It's the same thing. Resume next, go to 0. They are all the same. So after that, now the file that is created within the email. Now, how do we want to send it to the one we are sending the email to? Is it in form of PNG or PDF or Word or whatever? So with this one, preferably, I'll prefer we send it through what? PDF. Okay. So with that, we're going to use a function called export as fixed format. You know, when the file is added to the system, when we added a file in the workbook, you know, we just highlighted the cells behind it and then try to what? Choose the what's the name? The print area of it. Okay. So with that, it is taken inside the memory. So we would want to what? Export it in form of what? PDF. So to do that, like I said, we're going to use the function called export as fixed format, and that is what? Excel type PDF. And then we attach the file name to it, and that is that. So from there we are good to go. So we say what? Dot export fixed format. So we have that. Export as fixed format. So we have that, and then Excel type. So we have Excel. Excel type is PDF. Now, comma. Then we have the file name. You can see it's even given as the options here. File name. Okay, file name. Then after file name, then we have comma. Now the quality, we don't need anything about that. We can just give comma. And then include document properties. No, we don't need that. Then comma. Then the print area, we would want to ignore that one as well. So with that, we can just say false. Okay, so that is that. Then from there, comma. Then the from, we just have to skip that. Okay, okay. Then we can just add that to 1 from 1. Then comma. Then 1, 2. Since we have from where it's coming from and then to where it's going, so we just replace that with 1, 1, and then But then after that, we have the open after publish. No, we don't want to open it, so we can set that one to what? False. Okay, sorry. And I think we should be good to go. So basically, that is that. So that one too is done. So with this, the file is going to be exported in form of PDF straightforward within the email address. So now the next thing we are going to do, now that the email is created, now we need to what? Set the Outlook application now for the Outlook to also take its action, and then prepare and then go ahead and then as to decide whether to send the email or to display it. So let's do that. So you say what? Set Outlook application. Now we've already declared a variable for that. That should be equal to, sorry, we have Outlook application. Okay, that should be equal to, then we say what? Creates object. And what should be the object? That is the Outlook application. So we say what? Create, sorry, create object. What should be the object? The object should be Outlook dot, sorry, Outlook applications. Okay. I need to close the parentheses here, sorry, the inverted commas here. So that should be the object we are creating. Then after that, the mail to, we need to create that one as well. So we say what? Set, that is the Outlook mail. Outlook mail should be equal to also what? Then we say what? Outlook application dot create item into brackets 0. Okay, so that is that. So this one will also create the mail for us. Then after that, now we need to define where the email is going, addition to the attachment, then the subject, then the body of the message, then we decide to whether to display or to send. Okay, so let's do that. So we say what? Where the message is going. So let's do that first. So we say we declare, we say 2, sorry. That one we say 2 equal to the email address we have taken. Okay, so that is that. The second one is what? The attachment. So we say dot attachment, right? Okay. That's that. Dot attachment dot add file name. Okay, that will add the file. That is the file, the image we have just added. Now the next one is the subject. So we say what? Dot subject. Okay, dot subject. The subject of our mail equal to, we have already declared that one as well as subject, so we assign that to that. Then the body dot body here equal to, that one too is the message itself. Okay, that is the message, the body of the message. Then the last one, we need to decide as to whether to display or to send. So we say display. So with this one, it will display the message, but if you want to send it, you can then change this one to what? To send. Okay, so here we want to display, so we say what? Dot display. Perfect. So I think that is also working with that, with everything. Okay. Okay, so but before we do that, we have to use a minute. Let me just correct this one here. So we use the Outlook mail object. Okay, so we say what? With Outlook mail, then we end it here with what? And sorry, and with, so that will permit us not to mention the Outlook mail dot to, Outlook mail dot attachment, Outlook mail dot subject, Outlook mail dot body. So with this, we wouldn't have to mention all that again. So you should just make sure that there is no need to mention Outlook mail attached to this again. So with and then end with has taken care of that. So once that is done, we need to make sure if there is any error within this, then we would want to what? Go to what? Next thing, or we go to 0. So we can do that. So we say what? On error. Okay. You can say, okay, go to 0. So that is that. So the next thing we are going to do is this. So now that the email is set and sent, it will surely be within the memory. So to make sure that we free up the memory, we say what? Set outlook mail equal to, we can leave it as empty string like this, or we say what? Sorry, nothing. Okay, so basically that is that. So this will clear that from the memory. So in case of any error within that, so we say on error, this time we can say resume next perfect. So well, the reason why we normally do this, sometimes it may happen that it's not emptied, okay, it's still lagging in the memory, so we might encounter any error, and that shouldn't be any major error. Okay, so if that is the only error, if it is not any object that we didn't define or any variable, so that one is a minor error, so we just want to resume to the next line of action. Okay, so basically that is that. So once that is done, it should delete it. Maybe if it didn't delete, if it didn't set it to nothing, it means the file is still there. So with that, we have to use the kill function to just make sure that we delete it ourselves. So we say what? Kill into bracket, then the file name. Okay, perfect. So that is that. That will just delete it for us. Okay. So basically that is that. So now the next line of action is, now that that is achieved, let me just correct this here. Now we need to make sure that we have another options here. Aside sending the email, we have another option like printing. Okay, or maybe we may decide to print the email, so we need to check on that. So with that, we need to check this particular column or this particular range and make sure that before we can print, we should have a string called print here. Once we have, initially, before we send the email, we need to make sure that this particular range has a string called email. So now that we're going to deal with the printing, we need to make sure that this range is what? Print, before we can do that. Okay, do that right away. So with that, we'll just use, like I said, like the other one, the in strings functions we're going to use. So we say if in string into brackets, then we are looking for that from the sheet1 dot range into bracket, where we have those particular strings like email and print is in the column D, right? So don't forget of that D, sorry, D, and the students row. Okay, bracket close dot value comma, the string we are expecting there is what? Print. Okay, print. Okay, then bracket close is also maybe greater than 0. It means there is a value there, and that value is what? Print. Then we would want to do something, that one dots, we use the print out function. Okay, so print out, then we just want to print the email out. Okay, if there is what's the name, now after printing it out, we don't have to send it to anybody again. Once we print it out, we are just going to hold it, maybe have the hard copy with us. So to escape that, copies, then escape that, and then preview, we want to set it to what? False. Okay, we don't want to preview it. And then active printer, if there is an active printer which you know the name of the printer, you can add the name of the printer within this. Right now what we are doing is this: we are just giving it the printer that is connected to the machine right now. It can be that you have assigned a particular name, a particular printer's name, but another person may bring a different printer, or you can bring another printer at a point in time to connect to your device, and in that case you try to print this, it wouldn't work. So you have to give it to the active printer. So in that case, whichever printer that is given to, I think it will just print without any problem, without any stress. Okay, so print to file, so that one too, you can set that to false. Okay, so I think then collate false, you can just skip all these ones, and then ignore print area. So you can, that one too, you can just set it to false. Okay, I think that should be done. Perfect. Everything is done as well. So with this, it will just go ahead and then print this for us. So now what we need to do something to as to whether to when the message is sent, we would want to generate the time and the current time and date at which the message is sent or the email is sent, and that should be done within this range. Well, I stated very clearly that before we took these particular conditions in mind when we're deciding as to the conditions we need to meet, or maybe we need to check before we send the email. We said this particular range must be empty. So how do we do that? And then we decided that we made sure that we use if statement to check that. And now that the email is sent, we need to make sure that it's no more empty. So to make sure it's no more empty, we need to assign or maybe generate the current time and date within the range here, and that is to see to it that that also signifies that the email is actually sent and it's sent within this particular date and then this time. So once this particular range is filled with that, it means the email is sent successfully. So before you can send another one, you would have to make sure that you clear this. So that is that. So now let's make sure that once we click on send and then the email is sent, then this particular range should be filled with date and time. So let's do that. So with that one, just it's on sheet one. Okay, we say sheets. Okay, let me just sheet one dot range, sheet one dot range into bracket. Which of the column do we have that? Let's just confirm. We have that in column E. Okay, so let's go back. Dot range E and students, sorry, and student row dot value is equal to what value, what function do you think we can assign to this so that we can get the current date and time here? Okay, then please just a water break. I'm exhausted a bit here. Thank you. So what do you think we can, the function we can call here so that we can generate the time, current time and date within this particular range? Okay, what do you think that should be there? You can pause the video here and think of that. Have you gotten it? If yes, then bravo. If no, then the function is what now? So with this now, it will give us to generate the current date and time within that particular range. So basically that is that. So with this, I think our macro is now set. Okay, so let's try running. Okay, now before we can run it, let's just go and then assign this to this particular one, because in our macros we decided that we would want to display this particular range. Tells us that we are displaying the email before sending. Okay, let me just confirm that before we go ahead. Okay. Yeah. No display. Okay, here says that we would want to what, display the email before we do what, before we send it. This particular one says that. Okay. So now because of that, we have to assign to this particular button. So just right click, we would assign macro, then we choose create and send. We click on OK. So once that is done, here currently we are not printing, we would want to send. Okay, here we would want to send email. So we'll have to make sure that all these strings here are all what, email, because we are sending an email, we are not printing. If we are printing, that is where we can just go ahead. So let's run it and see. Okay, there is an error. Let's check and see if we can debug that. Okay, last row equal to sheet one dot range. Last row equal to sheet one dot range dot end into bracket xlr dot row. Okay, let me just see here. Anything? Okay. Okay, sheet. Okay, sheet one. Okay, it's just the one here. Okay, now let's confirm that now and see. So let's run it now and see. See what's going to happen now. Okay, our macro is now working. can see that my Outlook is already set. Okay, so it's just generating there because we decided that we want to display the email, okay, before we send it. So after this, what we need to do is just to click on send, and then we send the email. So just generated for 5 people, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now let's confirm. The first person is King, right? The first name. Okay, let me just confirm from my book. Uh, okay, it's like the last person rather's email that came to the top. The last person's email name is King, and then the second to last is Bra. We have Cynthia, we have Kwame, then we have James. Now let's confirm and see whether we have their mails. So this is that of James. Hi James. James, you are welcome to our website, and this is the file here we have attached. Let's try opening the file and see. Okay, it's also working perfectly. So this is our message from the message body. So let's confirm that. We welcome you to our website, and whatever message you would want to type, you do that here. That is also in good condition and as well. So thank you, regards, and everything. So I think everything is now working. So this is that of James. So let's close this. We don't want to save it. Let's check for the next person, Kwame. Hi Kwame. Kwame, you are welcome to our website. Everything is working. Close that as well. Now we check for Cynthia. Hi Cynthia. Cynthia, you are welcome. Blah blah. Working. And then Bra, also in good condition. Everything is working. And finally, I think King. So they're perfect. It's okay. Everything is now working. Now, since we have 2 buttons, so this one will display the email. So you can see that it has generated the date and then the current date and time at which the mails are generated or sent. Okay, so that is that. So for now, before we can send anything at all or display anything at all, we need to make sure that we select this and then clear everything. Okay, it is clear content, and then we do that. You know how to clear a range. Okay, so you can write a macro to do that. That should be assignment on this. Okay, you can finish with that. If you follow all these tutorials from the beginning to the end, that shouldn't be a problem. It should just be a walk on a park. Okay, now we need to send the email without displaying it. So do we have to write all these macros all over again? No, we are not going to do that. Just going to copy this and paste and just change one thing. Be thinking of what we are going to be changing whilst we do the creation of the next module, and then do the copying and pasting. So the next module, so you can name that and just say send email. Okay, so just double click it, then we create a sub procedure. We say sub send email. So this will send without displaying. So we can come back to this one. Just Control A to copy, or Control C to Control A to select, or Control C to copy. Sorry. Then we can come back to this one and then Control V to paste. So once we are done with that, the only thing we need to change is, instead of display, then we send the effect, and that should be good. So you can see now and minimize this. Let me assign that to this particular button. Assign macro. Okay, so this one is what send email. So let me choose this one and see what's going to happen. So once we click on a expected answer, where is that? Okay, sorry. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. 2 subs are here. When I was copying, I just copied together with the sub procedures. Perfect. Let me just stop this macro and then take off this one as well. Okay, sorry. So you can just equally do that now. So let's right click and then assign macro now. So we should have send email. Okay, so that is that. Let's check it now and see. Okay, So automatically it is sending the email without displaying it. You can see this confirms, this shows that it has actually sent the email. Okay, so this is how we write. So with this, if you have thousands of students or customers or whoever you would want to send your emails to, you can equally do that. So you have to make sure all the conditions are met. So with that, you are good to go. So the next time you would want to send, you have to make sure this is what's cleared. Okay? Just select this and then clear that. Basically, that is that. Like I said, we can just write a simple macro for that. Okay, how do we do that? You can pause the video and do that, and then after that you can confirm. So but then let's do it together. I can just create a button here for that. But before we do that, let's first of all create the buttons. We go to insert, we go to shapes. You can choose the shape and then we can just make it smaller, format it appropriately. We can just go with this, edit texts, and just okay, all capitals, clear. Okay, we would want to bold it then times New Roman. We would want to center it as well. Perfect. Everything is in action. Everything is in good condition. Perfect. So the next thing we're going to do, we're going to record a macro. Okay, we're going to record a macro and then quickly do that. So once we click on this record button, so let's click on that. Name of the macro. Did I just call it? Let me just name it. Sorry. Clear. Okay. Once I click on OK, any action that I'll do here is what I'll record and I'll assign that to this particular button and then it should take effect. Okay. So basically that is what I'm trying to do. So let's do that. So click on OK. It means it's recording here. It doesn't mean it's recording my voice. It's just recording the mouse but the mouse pointer's movement on the screen and then its action is going to be recorded. So I'm going to select the entire range here, maybe up to this. So depending upon what you want to do. So let me just end it on where I have my data. Okay. I would want to select up to this particular range. Then I'll right click and do what, say clear content. Once that is done, I would want to stop the recording. Now I'm done. So what I'll do is to right click on this button, assign macro, then I choose clear. So now I've assigned that. Okay. So now if I should just send email, so email is been sent. Okay, so if I'm coming to, so now the email is sent. Okay, or I would want to clear this. No need I select this and do that. I'll just click on this button, then it's done. Perfect. Simple as that. Control S to save. So we are done with our first project. So with this, you can see that my design doesn't look good at all. I always say this, that I'm not good at color combination. So it depends upon how things that you can add to it to make it look standing. The color to attract those that will be in need of these applications. People may contact you to help them get these applications created. Okay, so the designing, the front end design is also a key to all that. Okay, which is something I'm very bad at. It's just I didn't learn it. Once I learned it, I also know just as you guys do. So I think that is that. So we are done with our first project. It's very simple. As a beginner, you don't have to. I'm even thinking this project looks a bit complicated. Looking at the type of macros we wrote. As a beginner, you don't need any complicated program or project like this. You need the simple ones. Then you grow confidence. Then you go to the bigger ones. So that is that. But it's all not bad. We are still in the process of learning that. So that is that. So I can just say, let me just say, this should be the home page, right? Okay. So why not just having something like an email button here? Let me just go to insert and go to insert picture. Since I have some icons in my 5D, okay, let me just go for icons. Okay, I have that. Okay, let me look for the email button, email icon. Will this one be okay? Let me see if I have any other, or this one. Looking at the colors we have there, I think the blue one will be ideal. This is okay. Okay, so why don't we just have something like this here? And now it looks okay, it's not bad, okay. Or we can make it a bit smaller and have it here. See? But here is the catch. Why don't we change this background color? Something like once it's selected, then the background color here should be ish. Help me out, oh guys, help me out, help me out. Okay, I would want to, okay, let me go for white. Okay, once I go for white, then I would want to change the font to this dark blue as well to match with the, okay, sorry, this one to match with the icon. Perfect. Just drop this one a bit down. Okay, I think this looks okay. Yeah, it doesn't look bad. It is okay compared to the previous. I don't know, or you can manage it your own way. So our next lesson, where we shall be looking at our next project. So then I say thank you very much for watching, and then bye for now.